Okay, here we go. We are now in week 3. This is the first day of notes. So second day of the week, but first day of notes. So this is going to be notes. And this is module 1, topic 1, lesson 3. And I am calling it day 1, even though technically you're kind of watching this on day 2 of class. But it's the first day of notes. Okay, so in what we did last week, we constructed perpendicular lines. You can also construct parallel lines. So we're going to go through on how to do that. There's a couple different ways of constructing parallel lines. I'm going to show you what I think is the easier of the two. Not that the other way, at least the way the book shows, they show 2 different ways. Is that hard? It's just constructing perpendicular lines, but it's just you have to construct a perpendicular line, and then you have to construct another perpendicular, and then you have to construct another perpendicular. So it kind of takes a little bit of time, whereas the way I'm going to show for the construction of the parallel lines, I'm going to do it with duplicating an angle. So this kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You not only learn how to construct parallel lines, but you also learn how to construct a duplicate or a congruent angle. Okay, so one way to look at it to construct parallel lines is by doing a translation. So remember, a translation is just one way of a transformation. This is another word for a slide. You can either slide the line left, right, or up, down. So if you can take a line, not rotate it in any way, not reflect it in any way, just move it left, right, up, down, where the slopes stay the same, because remember, for parallel lines, they have the same slope. So if you can just slide that line, then you have parallel lines. So for example, if I have this here, line M, and all I do is just slide it straight down to where it makes line L, then I have 2 lines that are parallel. And these little symbols right here mean parallel. So when you see arrows on lines that are not the end arrows, implying that they are lines, not line segments, but you see separate arrows on there, then that means you have parallel lines. Now, with parallel lines, you may recall, you may not, you learned this in middle school, that when they are cut by a transversal, all a transversal, this here is a transversal. A transversal is just a line that cuts 2 or more lines in 2 or more separate areas, separate points. So in this case, this transversal T intersects line M there and intersects line L there. So it's 2 separate points. So for example, if I have 2 lines, this here is not a transversal of those 2 lines because all it does is intersect it at 1 point. That's just 3 intersecting lines. But if I had a different line that cut through, and it doesn't change colors, all right, it intersects it at 2 separate points. And notice the 2 lines don't need to be parallel for a transversal to intersect them. It can just be 2 lines that intersect, don't intersect, whatever. All right. All right, so with the corresponding angles, or I mean with the parallel lines, you have a bunch of different sets of angles that are congruent. Okay, and this little symbol right here means congruent. Okay, and remember, congruent means equal. Okay, so you have corresponding angles, which in this case, they're pointing out angles 1 and 8. So angles 1 and 8 are corresponding angles. There's other angles on here that are corresponding, 5 and 4, 7, 2, 6 and 3. Basically, corresponding means that they're on the same side of the transversal and same side of the lines that that transversal is intersecting, the parallel lines. So when you have parallel lines, then corresponding angles are congruent. Another set of congruent angles when you have parallel lines. Now notice these are all congruent with parallel lines. Okay. So you have to have parallel lines for these to be congruent. So another set is the alternate interior, and they point out 1 and 6. But 2 and 5 could also be alternate interior angles. They're on alternate sides of the transversal on the interior side of the parallel lines. And then the last but not least that they point out that are congruent are the alternate exterior angles. And they point out 4 and 7 as being congruent. So the alternate exterior, but 3 and 8 are also alternate exterior. So you have lots of different sets of angles once you get parallel lines in a transversal. And in geometry, we like congruent lines, so we like it when we have parallel lines with transversals. All right, so just a real quick rundown here. Basically, if you can slide a line and it stays congruent as you slide, which means the slopes stay the same, then you can conclude that the two segments are parallel. So in this case, it says that is line segment AE perpendicular to AD. So this little symbol here means perpendicular. All right, so AE is perpendicular to AD, and that's what this little symbol here means, the 90-degree angle. So remember, perpendicular means that it meets at a 90-degree angle. And DB is perpendicular to AD. So you have that 90-degree there. Can you conclude these are parallel? Well, yeah, basically all you've done is you've just slid AE over to DB, and therefore the angles have stayed the same, and so you have parallel lines. So you can state that these two are parallel. You can draw the little arrows on there. You can even write it out. Let's see if I can get my pen to work with me. So you can even write it out to where AE, line segment AE, so the line above, no arrows on it, is parallel. That symbol there is for parallel to DB, the line segment DB. Okay. All right, so a lot of vocabulary there. Let's get into some construction of some parallel lines. First off, we have to construct some duplicate angles. So we're actually going to skip, this is page 36. We're actually going to skip ahead. We're not going to do 37. We are going to skip to 38. All right, and I'm actually going to get a compass onto my page here so that I have it to work. I'll kind of talk through this worked example, but I first want to go through and actually work it. So we're going to go all the way down here to the very bottom, and we're going to duplicate angle B. Let me move my compass a little bit. All right. Now, you do not need to do this when you duplicate every single angle, but it seems like in this book, they make their rays or the angle sides really short. So I choose to extend out the side of the angle some. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to work the compass. Okay. So you may want to take a straight edge and just extend out, and I kind of offshot that one a little bit. Let's see if I can redo that one. Delete. So it just makes it a little bit easier for me to work the compass, especially on the smart board here. So I'm just going to extend it out the best that I can. I've got a little side one here. There we go. All right. So first thing you need to do, okay, is you need to get a starting point on your duplicate angle. So I am going to draw out another line down here, okay, and I'm just going to make it big enough so that I can duplicate my angle. With it, I'm going to label this point right here B prime, because the original angle has B as its vertex, so my duplicate angle is going to be B prime. So the angle where the letter where the angle or the two rays meet, the middle of the angle, whatever you want to call it, is called the vertex. Okay. All right. Now I need to draw an arc through both sides of my original angle. So I am going to take my compass. I am going to stick the pointy end on the vertex. I am going to not do that. I am going to stretch it out some. And I am going to change the color just so it makes it a little bit easier to see. Okay. All right. Now, all I have to do, my pointy end is on B. I just have to draw an arc that goes through both sides of this angle. You can draw a full circle around, but you don't have to. All it has to do is go through both sides of the angle. Okay. I am now going to pick up my compass, and I'm going to put the pointy end on B prime. Okay, now I have to draw an arc that basically duplicates the arc that I just drew on my original angle. So I don't want to just draw, and of course I moved it. So let's see if I can get it to duplicate it pretty close here. This happens when you guys do it. I think that's about as close as I'm going to get. Let me just get rid of that one and draw a new one. All right, here we go. There we go. All right, so I'm going to come down here on my duplicate angle, put the pointy end on B prime, and I'm going to draw an angle or an arc that basically matches. You don't want to make it too small because then you won't be able to actually duplicate the angle. I know that this angle is an obtuse one. It goes way out over here, so I'm going to draw it out big enough. Okay. Then I'm going to move it over there some. All right, now I got a label. Do some labeling here. Okay, so come on. There we go. All right. So I'm just going to label this point here, point A. I'm going to label this point here, point C. So now I'm talking about angle ABC. Notice the vertex letter is the middle. So the vertex in the middle, same thing on an angle. Okay. All right, so now I need to take my compass and I have to measure the distance from A to C. So let me go ahead and label this down here. This is going to be C prime. So I'm going to be working off of C, and I have to measure the distance with my compass from C to A. So I'm going to put my pointy end on C. I'm going to flip my compass around some. I'm going to move this down just a bit so that I can really use my compass. And I'm going to stretch this compass out. I've got to rotate it some. I'm going to stretch it out, rotate it some, and try my best to get about where point A is. Okay, so I've measured the distance from C to A now. Now I have to draw another arc. This one I only have to just barely go through point A. I don't have to make it really big. Again, I'm going to use a different color just so you can see it. All right, so I've got the distance, pointy end on C, pencil end on A here. And I'm just going to draw a little arc there so that I see it does go through point A. Now I'm going to pick up, I'm going to move my paper here so I can see without changing the distance of my compass, put my pointy end on C prime, and I'm going to intersect my arc with this arc. Ooh, I almost didn't make my red one big enough, just barely, lucky. All right, so now I don't need my compass anymore. My intersection point is right here. I'm going to call this A prime. And I am going to draw a line from B prime through A prime and I have just duplicated angle ABC into A prime, B prime, C prime. So I can say now that angle, oops, let me get back into my pen, angle ABC is congruent to angle A prime, B prime, that thing, C prime. All right, so let's just kind of run through that real quick with the worked example. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go up here to the top on the worked example. Okay, this is your given, so this is your original, and this is your duplicate. This is what you are making. So the first step that you do is you draw the line, and you get the point that you want to duplicate. In this case, they chose a different letter. All right, the original has the vertex of A. The duplicate is going to duplicate. How about we try that? There we go. So the original has A. The duplicate's going to have C as its vertex. Then all you got to do, it does not matter where the arc is, so you put the pointy end on A, and then you're going to construct an arc out that goes through both sides of the original angle. And then you're going to take that same distance and you're going to construct your angle or your arc on your duplicate. You don't have to be marking this up. It's just kind of hard for me to point it out and that sort of thing. All right. So then what you're going to do is you are going to label that intersection point here. In this case, they labeled it B. And you're going to measure out the distance from B to D. And they didn't make a little arc, but you should make a little arc there just to double check. And then you are going to take it over and you're going to make a little arc off of your duplicate one. And then you're going to draw your line segment through, or your ray through the vertex and the intersection point of the two arcs you constructed. Okay, all right, so we're going to do this one more time by making parallel lines. So we're going to go over to page 39. Okay, and we are going to duplicate an angle to make parallel lines. So we're going to construct a line that's parallel to line Q here. Again, I am going to extend out Q a little bit so that I have something to work with. You can extend it out both directions. It's kind of hard for me to extend it out both directions accurately. So I am not going to get into that, but you certainly can extend it out. I just want to keep the letter Q there where I can see it. All right, and we need to make a second line through Q, basically a transversal. So it doesn't matter where you put it, you just need to draw a line through Q. And we are actually going to duplicate this angle right here. Okay, so we're going to duplicate that angle. So the first thing we need to do is we need to just pick a point down here that I want to start with. And we're going to just label this one just so that we kind of keep track of our points and all that. So I'm going to label this one, let's just call it X. All right, and I'll call this one X prime. Okay. All right, so with my compass, I need to make an arc through both sides of the angle that I am duplicating. So I put my pointy end on X, and I am going to make an arc through both, and that one is too big. So we're going to try it again. So here's an arc right here. Okay, let's get rid of this one. All right, so we have that one right there. Okay. Now, without moving my compass at all, changing the distance, I'm going to take it down here to x prime, and I am going to draw a new arc. Okay. So that it duplicates it. Now, okay, I'm going to call this point right here point Y. I'm going to call this one here point Z. Okay, I need to measure the distance from Y to Z. So I am going to take my compass, I'm going to put it on Y, and I'm pretty darn close where I'm at, but not quite, so I'm going to stretch it out some so that it lands on Z. Okay, and I am going to draw an arc through Z on this side here. Okay, and I didn't label this side, but that's okay. We can do that real quick. So this is Y prime right here, this point. I'm going to move this compass doesn't like me today. All right, we're going to try this again. Come on. I'm going to move it up. Move it to where it lands on Z a little better. There we go. Let's try this again. Make my arc. Okay. Now I'm going to move my compass so that it matches up with Y prime. And I'm going to draw my arc through my first arc. Now I do not need my compass anymore since it doesn't like me anyway. And I am going to label this point here Z prime. And I just need to now draw a line through X prime and Z prime the best that I can. And I have just duplicated this angle. So this angle here is congruent to that angle. So I can say that angle YXZ is congruent to angle Y prime, X prime, Z prime. And because I have congruent angles, I can state that this is parallel to this. And I have just constructed parallel lines. So with one construction, you've duplicated an angle and you've constructed parallel lines. All right, and that is it for the notes today.